Order online at picassospizza.net.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to this Trainwreck Sports podcast where we are here to pay the bills. We got a full house tonight. Mike Bundt, Ajay Cebulski, Mike Parthy, Carson Hayek joining in as we had a disappointing result on Sunday night. We had our first loss of the season. This is our first post-loss podcast of the 2025 season. The Bills fall to the New England Patriots 23-20 on Sunday Night Football in the whiteout game. There's a lot of gripes. Partham, we did this in the last couple of years. I almost named this the Bills Festivus episode because I feel like we could have done it early. We could have got right into it. There's a lot of issues to talk about. Mike Bundt, as you were leaving this, I know this answer. We all know this answer. As you were leaving the stadium, how you felt during this game. But let's start with you and go around the horn. What was your biggest takeaway leaving the stadium after witnessing what we saw during Sunday Night Football in this loss to New England, the division rival?
The Bills season is falling apart. The world is over. Plan for the worst. I'm done with this team. Let's burn these white jerseys. I never want to see them again. White out. Don't need it. Done with it. Moving on to Sabres season. It's a better team to support in Buffalo, but realistically, like, it's one loss. Like, it's fine. Like, the Bills are still the Super Bowl favorites. They're still the AFC favorites. They're still likely to win the AFC East. And you look at the rest of the NFL. The Ravens lost. The Eagles lost. The Chiefs lost. Like, there's a lot of parity in football. That's the way things go. They played almost as bad of a game as they could have played offensively, and they still had a tie ball game with a chance to get the ball back with under 2 minutes left. So as bad as things felt and went at times, the Bills could have easily won that game if they just did what they normally do, and that's protect the ball, not give free points away to your opponent, and not keep points off the board by giving the ball back on a turnover in the opposing team's red zone. So didn't feel good Sunday night. Couple days to process. Feel a lot better. I'm on to Atlanta. Just got to take care of business and rebound on Monday night.
I agree that they're still Super Bowl favorites. I agree that it's a parity league. We see all these other teams falling. They were basically by a few hours the last undefeated team in the league, and that didn't last long. But I also felt like the chickens finally came home to roost after a couple of weeks because the Bills have been playing with their food more or less against the Dolphins, against the Saints. We've covered it. You turn turn the ball over untimely interception around. You have one or two Saints make a couple of timely catches, or maybe they don't get a timely interception in the other team's red zone. And those games could be completely different results. I mean, let's go back to week 1 in the Ravens, for crying out loud. The Jets is really the only decisive win that they've had. Even though most of these last couple of wins have been by double digits, they've been mostly late cover double digits, so to speak. So maybe Coach Orion in Mighty Ducks 3 was right. You learn more from a loss than a win or even a tie. So maybe this is finally a wake-up call. They need to address some of their issues. But obviously, we knew it was it's a flawed team going into this season. The cornerbacks and the whole defensive backfield leave something to be desired. They're still looking for a pass rush. The receiving room is mid-tier at best, but they still have Josh Allen. They still have James Cook, and they still have some decent depth at linebacker, I think, even with Matt Milano going out in the second half. So we're in a better position than most teams in this league, but nothing is certain anymore. Especially, we saw the Chiefs have been going down the last few weeks. The Ravens have obviously lost a lot of guys. The Bengals are just cooked fine out, for the rest of the schedule. But now our road looks a little more rocky ahead, and within our own house with the Patriots, they're only a game away with a tiebreaker already. But of course, there's going to be another game, and of course, there's a lot of season to play. So, AJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they're going to be okay. Like Mike said, many great teams are perceived great teams lost this weekend. The Eagles had a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter against the Broncos, blew it. The Chiefs had a 14-point lead last night against the Jaguars and blew it. They had 13 penalties for 109 yards, and Mahomes had a costly turnover. So kind of similar to how the Bills lost, the Chiefs just could not get away from the penalties on special teams. They had a costly defensive pass interference on Brian Thomas in the end zone to extend that Jaguars drive. So it felt a little Billsy, the Chiefs' loss on Monday night. But in terms of the Bills, my big takeaway is this. There's two, but they're both to do with the running back position. Not one single running back caught a pass on Sunday night against the Patriots. James Cook had 0 catches. Ty Johnson had 0 catches. Ray Davis 0 catches. That game plan boggles me. If that's what they wanted to do, they need to utilize their running backs as pass catchers. You saw how important that was last year, and you've even seen it how important it is this year with James Cook making a lot of big plays as a pass catcher. And Ty Johnson and Ray Davis had big games in the past last year and really helped out an underwhelming wide receiver core. The other thing that does concern me is the Bills could not run the football, and that really confused them and made their offense look not elite during that game. They again, sloppy turnovers, but their inability for them to run the football, that's the first time we've really seen that this year. And it seemed like Joe Brady, Josh Allen, the pass catchers, besides Dalton Kincaid, really didn't have an answer for what the Patriots were doing. They played predominantly man coverage. They stacked the box. They said, Bills beat us over the top. The Bills couldn't. And I'm leaving this game questioning if a team can stop the Bills defensively against the run, and the Bills are not able to move the ball efficiently through the run game. Then what are they going to do, and how are they going to, adjust to that? And, they have time to figure that out. It is early October. But these, like Jake said, these losses always seem to happen with this regime year in, year out, constantly these October blunders that, could cost them again the 1 seed this year if they continue to lose games they shouldn't because of, sloppy play and all that. So it comes down to the turnovers and penalties ultimately. But I think a lot left to be desired with the passing game and what they're able to do with it when the running game is not, doing what it's supposed to be doing.
For starters, I'm a big streak guy. I love winning streaks, everything like that, record book. I am pissed that this is the game that breaks the 14-game winning streak at home. The Bills were tearing it up. That's one of the I want to say top 10 longest winning streaks at home in NFL history. It's around there. Don't quote me on that. But for it to lose to an inferior opponent that's in your division, that's dominated my childhood in the way that they did, that was infuriating. But it's you guys brought it up when it comes to losses like this at this time of year. It seems weeks 5 through 7 are, if you're ever going to beat the Bills in the regular season as an inferior opponent, that's your time to do it. The green light's going to come around. The Bills, September champions, and then the first 2 weeks in October, first 2 to 3 weeks, they fall off a little bit and then always rebound towards the rest of the way. But I think people have to relax. There is zero reason why anybody should be calling for Sean McDermott's job at this point in time. It's a week 5 regular season game against the divisional opponent where you're still tied for the 1 seed. You're technically the 2 seed. The Joe Brady hate to me is insane. I'm going to have a whole separate probably rant on that later. I'll save that. But when you're in the top 5 in a majority of categories, like, guys, like, it's getting like that's just being obnoxious fans. So people just have to relax. We're fine as a team. Your team's never going to be perfect. Cap space is real when you're paying a quarterback $50+ million a year. Not every position on the team is going to be elite, and Josh Allen is really taking a little bit of a pay cut with that too. So it's just a painful, irritating loss the way we lost. If you lose that game 37-34 and there's some sort of shootout, I think, hey, maybe fans are going to live with that a little bit more. But I thought the Bills shot themselves in the foot. 3 turnovers. They lost that game, I think, more than the Patriots won it. Whenever you lose the turnover battle like that, and the penalties were just ridiculous. Sean Hockey's crew, that's a whole other separate conversation. But some of those were penalties. So the Bills have to clean it up, and they've been messing around a little bit for too long and bit them to a good team in New England. I don't think New England's there yet. I still think this AFC East is the Bills to win, but this loss puts a lot more pressure, I think, coming into this game, because against Atlanta, you got the bye after that. So if you get into the bye week with 2 straight losses, I think there's some concern. You start to feel a little bit of pressure. Hey, the Patriots are kind of on your butt a little bit too. So this is a big week for the Bills, I think. This is a huge game. If they can rebound, I think we're going to be feeling a lot better about ourselves. But right now, Bills fans, we got to just relax. It's one game. We're all right. This team's proven, hey, we can win. We can win when it matters most. That's one step in the road. Week 5 loss at the end of the day is not going to lose you your season.
Carson, you touched on it, and I just want to briefly address this, and we can get it out of the way because you want to talk infuriating. I've got someone that's infuriating me. Sean Hockley is the over-officious jerk of the week. Do we not agree? I mean, it was a lot of sloppiness on the Bills, and sometimes when it got to the second half, the Patriots finally started getting calls against them, a couple in particular that pushed the Bills at least 30 yards downfield. But I don't think there was anything particularly egregious until the very end on that, what was that, the third down play when someone got early on Shakir, and after all the ticky-tack calls they've been calling all game and they don't call that, what the heck kind of a chicken call?
Call I've ever seen. That is the most chicken call I've ever seen.
Right, we're done. We're done bitching about the officials. We got plenty to bitch about on the Bills side.
I knew I could count on you though, Parthy. I wasn't even going to bring up the officials until you did. I knew it was coming.
Odds.
Yeah, exactly. Easiest lock of the day. There's a lot to get into with this game and just the outlook of the Bills. Parthy, I think you said it great with just there were signs in the last couple weeks of warts that came to roost in this game. Just some sloppiness, the not putting your throat on these teams that are inferior to you. And I also think the problem is that the Patriots, I'm a little higher than you, Carson, on this Patriots team. They're a 5 turnover disaster from being 4-1 and being first place in this division. They had 5 turnovers against the Steelers in a horrific game. They've had trouble putting the ball. They put the ball on the ground more than, I don't know. They might have the most fumbles in the league. I don't know that for a fact. Ramondre Stevenson, though,
I do believe that they have
number 1.
6 turnovers total, and like you said, 5 of them were from that Steelers game. So maybe it's a bit of a mirage, a one-time fluke. Hopefully, the Bills are a one-time fluke for this game too.
And that's the thing. That's the other streak I thought Carson was going to mention too, is the turnover battle streak of it was 25, 26 straight games of winning the turnover battle, and those are just things that regress to the mean. And so you would hope that it's not a situation where the Bills' turnovers are going to rear their head as the seasons go along. But Carson, and I'll jump back to you in a second here because I want to talk about things that we've touched on and you touched on in your article and everything else this week, because we saw it last week. Listen, talked about impatient Josh Allen and him not just, and it was just a couple moments in last week's game where it was like, hey man, like he didn't need it. Like he's not taking the easy stuff like he had been during this week. And then in the biggest moments in this game, he doesn't take the easy stuff. And it whether it's, that should have been a call for sure on Gonzalez getting to Shakir early, but earlier in the play, he has somebody, he bails on the pocket early. The interception is a throw that you would see. I mean, that's old Josh Allen rearing his head on that interception. So I want to jump it back to Carson here, because you guys made a lot of the points that I was going to make. There's a lot of warts that we can get into the rest of the night. I think that they played it. I think that they were playing around, like you said, Parthy, they're playing around their food for weeks, and the Patriots are just a good enough team to make you pay for that and capitalize on those mistakes. Drake May is the biggest story for me from the Patriots. Like not even that he played like out of his mind, and like the narratives the last couple of days of him being like the next best quarterback in the league and all this stuff is a little out of touch, but he was poised. He was able to make plays when plays shouldn't have been made, and that's all they really needed. But Carson, the offense and Allen specifically, I see you smirking. You're ready to get into it. So I just want to hear what your thoughts are here.
This would be my internet right now blows, so this would be a really bad time for me to lag out. But I think to start off with this, I think a lot of people were calling for this team to be more aggressive, take the shots down the field. We aren't explosive. Josh is, taking the checkdowns. The play calls are conservative. Well, it's working. It was working. The Bills were the number 1 rushing attack in the league. The ADOT, average depth of target, is a yard less for a reason. You're facing a lot of too high shells. It's over 60%. Defenses aren't going to allow you to beat them over the top. And then to pair that with it, Josh is getting the ball out quicker. He's making the right reads. Sal Capaccio and I think it was Eric from Cover One a few weeks ago. We played Miami. The corner was wide open. Guess what? But the first read was open. Why would he not throw the first read if it's covered, right? So like just taking what the defense gives you, and people are calling for him to be more aggressive, everything like this. And All of a sudden, week 4 against the Saints comes around. Josh forces one. Keon Coleman down the field, picked off. Should have never been thrown. They seemed out of rhythm these past few weeks. I think air raid cover 1 guys, they touched on it. Joe Brady tried to take the training wheels this week off for the wide receivers. Get the job done. I think that you guys brought up the running back receiving stat and how they didn't have a catch-all game. I think that's a testament to that. They tried to get down the field a little bit more, although Josh didn't necessarily throw it because he's smart enough to realize, hey, they're not getting open down the field. I think they were going a little bit – they were trying to be more aggressive, taking that shot down the field to prove that teams, hey, we can stretch the field. I don't know if they have the guys for that right now. Whether or not it's a personnel thing or a play calling thing, I think that's 2 different situations. I think they've tried to take those shots down the field, but for whatever reason, it hasn't panned out. You look at a McDermott quote, I think we got cute. I think, again, that is McDermott saying, hey, the offense is out of rhythm. We're doing things a little bit differently. We got to get back to our identity. So for me, when people bring up aggressiveness, I'm not a huge fan of that because I think this offense – why change if it's not broke? Why fix it? Right? It was working. I get James Cook was slowed down this week, but at the end of the day, it's just 2 weeks in a row now. Josh extremely impatient. The second half, I saw hero Josh Allen try to come out way too much. He missed a touchdown to Curtis Samuel. That would have been an almost gimme. I know somebody tried to argue that point to me today, but Samuel had him beat by about 10 yards. I don't think the corner was going to get there. He's rolled out a lot, and then we had Josh, horrendous play, rolls to his left. Lucky that there was a pass interference call because that was peak rookie year 2 Josh Allen type of throw. It's just they're getting a little impatient. And that was the thing when Joe Brady took over. They neutered him a little bit because Josh needed to be neutered. He has struggling with turnover issues. When Joe Brady took over, all that was forgotten. They ran the football extremely well. I still think they're one of the best rushing offenses in the league. One game does not define you. And they took the turnovers out of it, and guess what? They started winning games. We've talked about this before. They became a little bit more conservative, I guess you could say, if you're a typical fan. But really, I view it as they were more disciplined. They knew what they did well. They stuck what they did well. They stuck with what they did well. Their identity is a run-first football team. And you have the MVP at quarterback who can make plays when you need him to. You balance that. That's a good winning combination. Turnovers, people, first thing that they said to me when I called out fans for the aggressive argument, the fumbles, that's not them being aggressive. You're missing the big point. The big point is they were trying to take shots down the field. Josh didn't throw them. Patriots were on it. The separation, they don't have guys who could separate that well. I still have concerns about Keon. Josh Palmer separating more than the numbers say. I think that's a little bit of Next Gen's bias. Next Gen Stats is biased with that and how they scale things when it comes to guys catching the football and how that stat's attributed. But it's just an argument that I don't really like when we're second in EPA. The run game's elite. You're top 5 in yards, top 5 in points per game. You're still averaging over 30 points a game. You have an MVP favorite right now. It's just people are way too picky. That's just my opinion. I think people are being a little too picky right now. Just relax. It's the first 3 weeks they were disciplined. Just because they're not scoring 70-yard touchdowns, that's okay. Each team has got a gap that they're not perfect at. With the Ravens, for example, even when they're at their highest, it was like, I still don't know if Lamar is the greatest of throwers. I have concerns about their passing game. With the Chiefs, it's been, they're averaging 23 points a game. Is their offense just in general good enough to get them to the Super Bowl? Guess what? Didn't matter. They got there because of their defense as well. But when KC needed to score, they scored in the biggest of moments. And then you just example again, KC can't run the football this year. So is that going to be the obstacle? It's just every team has something. Like, salary cap is real. It's never going to always be perfect. You're not going to be able to score 75 yards and do all that. So to me, the aggressiveness argument and how they got to take more shots down the field and stretch the field, that is just a pet peeve of mine. I think that's kind of a little bit of a fallacy when you're still producing the way the Bills offense has had.
I'm going to let Ajay and Partham go before me because I think Carson literally just stole all of my talking.
I was about to say that Carson was basically filibustering you out of your monologuing time.
In that moment, I don't think I've ever been prouder of Carson. I respect his knowledge. He played quarterback, so obviously he knows what he's talking about. And when we're having like a brain melt, I'm just like, Yo, maybe I am pretty good at this talking about football stuff.
Come on, you called me mini AJ earlier before the show started, so I don't hear. I have people.
I take that back. I apologize for that insult, Carson. You are a very intelligent man, and now I'll let AJ take the opposite side.
AJ's sitting there in pain, by the way, adding insult to injury. Poor AJ.
We have more than enough things that we can argue about later, but I'm glad we're on the right side of this quarterback. And we are going to be talking about receiver separation at some point because I know that's going to somehow facilitate itself into the conversation. But you guys take it away, and then I'll wrap up before giving it to Jake.
Yeah, so I've seen, some advanced numbers come out today with the wide receiver separation showing that Coleman does separate and that Palmer does separate. Now, that doesn't match what I'm seeing at the game and what I'm seeing downfield when Josh is, abandoning the pocket early and not trusting what he's seeing. Now, I think there is an issue. The Bills are third in explosive play rate in the NFL. So the explosive plays actually have been there compared to the league. The Bills are at 16.36%. The Eagles are actually having a really tough time with explosive plays at 28th in the NFL at 10.14%. So that just shows you the Bills, I think the Eagles have a bigger issue going on with their offense compared to a Bills team, even though, the Eagles clearly have, the better weapons and, running back and receiving, all that. But I think with the Bills, the problem for me is and I told this to Carson on the phone yesterday.
Yep.
Is that the Bills do, have trouble separating down the field. And I know Carson's point was that, to stick to what you do. But my counter to that is what if defenses, catch on to that and take away what you do? And it's not just going to be throw deep balls all the time. That's what you're going to have to do. I understand that. But if Josh Allen, who I think we can all agree, or maybe most of us can agree that he is not the best down the field passer, right? I would not say he is the most accurate passer. That's probably one of the weaknesses of his game is throwing balls 30 plus air yards down the field. It's one of his, probably worst analytics stats if you look at the numbers. Well, why, are you attacking players? And I guess it goes back to the identity and philosophy of the team. Why are you attacking players that then can't get open down the field and you have to pinpoint these balls so accurately for them to even make a play on it? So I think the concern with me is we all assume that, the Bills can win in multiple ways on offense. And I agree with this too. If they take away the run, we can just pass the ball. Well, if they take away the pass, now we have a run game that's been, really engraved in the offensive line and the running back and Allen and what they do offensively. Joe Brady loves running the football. Well, the thing with me is this: Steve Spagnuolo, and I told this to Carson as well, and I know this is relevant. Steve Spagnuolo, what is his best attribute as a defensive coordinator is taking away what you do best. That's why Stephon Diggs every time in the playoffs would be shut down because that's what the Bills did best. They threw the ball to Stephon Diggs. That was their best offense, right? That was what they did. That's why they were one of the best. And they obviously had a great aerial attack besides Stephon Diggs and still put up points against Kansas City. But they were able to adjust. The thing that Joe Brady's going to have to do this year if they face a Kansas City is Steve Spagnuolo is going to take away James Cook. He knows what the Bills like to do. He is going to do that. That is what Steve Spagnuolo is best at. So the Bills are going to have to adjust. And right now, I do have a fear that the players on the boundary are not able to do that at a good level. And I think that's not just the receivers on the boundary. I also think that's Allen having the trust with his eyes. He's getting too antsy. He's leaving the pocket too early. I think there's a lot of combination of things. But right now, for me, the explosive plays are still there, especially on the ground. I think the offense is going to be okay. They had, one bad week where 3 turnovers, terrible turnover by Keon, who also was benched in the first drive of the game, which is absolutely inexcusable for a second-year player to be benched on an opening drive of a divisional game because of disciplinary issues. And obviously Sean McDermott was, embarrassed by that and upset with Keon and that they had to bench him, but that just can't be happening. So I think the turnovers really hurt this team. They were behind the sticks a lot. They couldn't really find a rhythm, even when they were, like the first play of the game, Allen steps into the pocket, delivers a beautiful ball to Kincaid, right? Then, a penalty hurts them, and then they're backed up, and then they do a Dawson Knox end around, which was just, you can question the play call, but I'm sure they practiced that all week. I think that should be executed, right? And it just wasn't executed. So all in all, defensive coordinators are going to start to pick up on what the Bills are doing great, and that's running the football. Will the Bills be able to adjust and find different ways to win? They have yet to prove that yet, to me, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's said all the time, take what the defense gives you. I recently rewatched a 30 for 30 on Al Davis versus the NFL, where he said, I don't believe that. I believe in taking what you want, imposing your will, et cetera, et cetera. I don't believe that the Bills quite have the offensive firepower in order to execute that sort of thing. But when you have Josh Allen, more or less, that's the biggest ingredient you need in order to do that. Now, just dissecting some of these offensive struggles here. So, someone in the comments mentioned Josh Allen 28th in average target separation. He's also second in time to throw, which means he's, like we saw last night, he's buying time, getting out of the pocket, sometimes getting out of the pocket a little too early. He should have seen Keon Coleman breaking loose downfield, but he's just trying to find guys, seeing them trying to basically play backyard football and go this way, go that way, and he's not seeing anybody separating as much as the metrics say. Dalton Kincaid, who had a great game, he had a 100-yard game. They should have gone to Dalton Kincaid more often, as much as they did already. And Josh Palmer is separating as far as the metrics say, but he's just not getting the target rate that most of the other receivers are. Keon Coleman basically had a 50-50 game where he caught some contested catches and he didn't catch some, two in particular in the first half, I do believe. So it's a mixed bag from this receiver room. Joe Brady's assertion that there aren't that many wide receiver man beaters in the league, I'd like to go back to the stats and reassess that, because I think at least every team has one, maybe two. And the Bills are a little bit in the lower tier in that regard. But keep in mind, he also said that this is the best corner tandem that they faced all year. This is Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. They're maybe top 5 in the league. So maybe they won't face that much coverage on the edges with other teams that they face with the Patriots. But they're going to have to play the Patriots again, of course, so they're going to have to figure that out. As far as the run game goes, the Patriots went in here giving up only 3.3 yards per carry, which is exactly what they held James Cook to in this game. There was one little stat that came out of Lockdown Bills. The Patriots were in base defense on 14 occasions. The Bills had 12 runs for 2.8 yards per carry and 2 passes that went for 20 and 23 yards respectively. So maybe getting them in that base defense, they should have gone more to the pass, maybe audible into the pass instead of the run games. Also for James Cook, it was the lowest yards after contact per attempt game that he's had this season, and for the Bills rushing offense as a whole. So it is a run first and then pass when we have to offense, but then what happens when the run falters? You have to have guys that can get open down the field, especially with Josh Allen's improvisational skills. So, and there was obviously just mistakes all game. Carson, you spoke to Josh Allen's impatience. There was a read option play that he had with Ty Johnson, where if he tosses it to Ty, he might have likely scored, but he keeps it himself, and they have to end up settling for the field goal. So Allen was not perfect. The receivers, obviously, we knew going in the receivers could be better. Maybe it was just a bad matchup game for them in this particular occasion. Kincaid is everything that we hoped that he would be in a rebound year. I think they might have to lean on him a little bit more. And as far as the run game, we just hope that we can face less formidable teams. And especially, like AJ said, when we run into teams that are going to be dedicated to taking away the run game, and James Cook in particular, the Bills have to be able to adjust on that fly and find where their passing game is, whether it's short or long or otherwise.
Yeah, there's a lot to take away from this game on Sunday night, and I know the defense allowed the drive that led to the game-winning field goal, but this game, in my opinion, falls mostly on the offense just not executing and not doing what they were supposed to do. And there's a lot of different reasons why. Obviously, the run game struggled, and you could say, based on how it did struggle, that, well, if the Bills aren't able to run the ball, other people need to step up. And obviously that wasn't really enough of the case on Sunday Night Football. But I have a few opinions I want to get into. First off, AJ, Carson, you talked about how the deep ball wasn't working and that it's something that Josh Allen has struggled with in the past metric-wise. Most of his career, to be honest, if you look at the advanced numbers. Mm-hmm. That might actually explain more why they brought Keon Coleman in versus a separator. Because think about it. The Bills have had separators during Josh Allen's career. They've had Stephon Diggs. They've had Emmanuel Sanders. They've had guys that are known for getting open, yet Josh Allen didn't hit many of them at a high percentage. it might be Brandon Beane's philosophy of we're not making deep plays happen even when we have separators. Why not get a guy that you can just throw the ball up to in the general vicinity and he can go up and catch it? Now, has it worked at a high rate? No. But when you think about it that way, that might be the whole purpose of why they have Keon is, yes, he's not going to separate, but at least we have a chance every time we throw up to him. And there are a lot of receivers that are deep threats in this league that are not separators because they do exactly that. An elite NFL separation isn't really that much anyway. We see, I saw so many comments following the game saying we need a separator like Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is a $25+ million receiver. If you want, that's what Shakir and Palmer combined are getting. So, like, you got to make some concessions. Like, if you want that type of receiver, you're going to be losing somebody else on your team. Now, that's a Brandon Beane decision. Maybe he could have allocated resources differently. But when people talk about weapons, I don't just look at receivers, tight ends, running backs. I think the Bills' offensive line is a weapon. There's a reason why Josh Allen is the least sacked quarterback in the NFL since the start of 2024. There's a reason why the Bills have one of the best running attacks in the game. It's because they have resources pumped in their left tackle, right tackle to run the ball. And that's what they do really well. And last year before the season, nobody wanted them to run the ball entering the first full year of Joe Brady. And what did they do? They tied a single season rushing touchdown record with James Cook. And Josh Allen also got a lot of touchdown runs. And they won a lot of games, and they advanced the closest they've gotten to the Super Bowl since McDermott, Allen have taken over. So what did they do this past game? They went away from it. They tried to pass on a defense that, according to the numbers, is a weaker secondary, but had Christian Gonzalez return, and they couldn't get it done. The bread and butter is the running the ball. And they needed to stick with it. And what hurt them was penalties on early down situations, which made it first and long, second and long, forced into passing situations. And if we're going to be honest, this receiving core is not good enough right now to exploit opposing defenses through the air consistently. Going deep is not going to be the answer for the Bills in this situation. They don't have the guys right now. Now, some of that is the receivers. And some of that is Josh Allen, and some of it might be scheme related. But when you look at the situation, we can't say it's all the receivers. Like, that's what everybody wants to do. They just want to put all the blame on the receivers. Let's be real. Khalil Shakir is an above-average slot receiver in the NFL. And Dalton Kincaid right now is top 5 in the NFL in tight end receiving. So he projects as someone that's going to be having a top season out of tight end. So you have two very good weapons right now from your tight end, your slot receiver. And let's look at Josh Palmer as a wide receiver 3. As a wide receiver 3, getting 40+ catches for close to 600 yards, you could do a lot worse in that area. What we're really saying is that Keon Coleman is not what they need, that they need somebody better than Keon Coleman. That's what everybody's basically saying. And there's always been this talk that Josh Allen elevates everybody around him. So, yeah, there's the belief that maybe Josh can make Keon a better player. If we're being real, though, Curtis Samuel was a pretty solid, consistent player before he came to Buffalo. Elijah Moore has averaged 60 catches a year the last 2 years. I don't see them doing almost anything in Buffalo. So we can't act like these guys are bums when they weren't bums before they came to Buffalo. So we can't say this guy sucks, that guy sucks. There's fans that thought Elijah Moore was going to be a 1,000-yard receiver before the year. There was fans last year that thought Curtis Samuel was going to be a 60, 70-catch receiver. So what happened? If you have the offensive line, you have the quarterback. Why are those receivers that have always been good not good right now? They didn't just forget how to play football. So the truth of it is it's deeper than that. Carson alluded to it a little bit, and there is some truth to it. The Bills have neutered Josh Allen a little bit. When they had Dorsey and Dable, they were pass heavy. That was their offense. They throw it 5 less times per game. Over the course of a season, that's about 85 passes. Josh Allen's interception numbers didn't just go down because he got smarter. They went down because he's throwing the ball almost 100 times less per season, in addition to throwing deep balls considerably less, deep balls which he's not necessarily good in the metrics on, deep balls and intermediate passes that have a higher turnover percentage. And then by limiting those throws, what has happened? He's reduced his turnovers. The Bills had a 25-game stretch where they didn't lose the turnover battle. The Bills, when they were losing under Dorsey, turnovers. We always said they only lose when they blow games themselves. Basically, what the Bills coaching staff, when they went to the complementary football scheme, was, Josh, you're great. Just play within yourself. You don't need to force things. You don't need to be crazy. We have a good running back. We got a good offensive line. Our defense isn't the best. We don't want them on the field consistently. So they basically took Josh Allen and said, we're good enough. We got this. But fans want the fun game. They want the passing game. Notice how the Bills threw the ball more in this game, 31 times. And what happened? More of those questionable decisions. More of those poor throws. They're connected. Fans hate to say it. But if the Bills went back to the Dable offense, Josh Allen would go back to throwing 15 interceptions. And they don't want to accept it because they want to think that he magically got better. Colin Cowherd says this all the time. You don't take the player out of the guy. Brett Favre threw interceptions his entire career. Like, Matt Stafford still throws interceptions. Josh Allen, the only reason he doesn't throw the same amount of interceptions is because the Bills changed the entire way they were running their offense. And what we'll say is we always like to act like sugar high Josh isn't a thing. But then in moments like the AFC Championship in that first drive, Josh Allen almost threw 2 interceptions on his first 3 throws. There was a moment later in the AFC Championship, Curtis Samuel's wide open. He throws it at his feet, costs a 30-yard gain. Chance to win the game at the end. We don't go anywhere. Misdiagnosed a blitz. They don't execute. They don't finish. This situation, that drive, down 3, 20-17, was one of the worst drives by Josh Allen in the last 2 years because he showed everything that we thought he has evolved past is still in him to a certain extent. And Bills fans should be worried about that because it's not that Josh Allen isn't incredible. He is the only reason the Bills are a great elite football team. The only reason. But when your defense isn't that great, when you have limited skill players, he needs to be nearly perfect. We've seen him be perfect and the Bills still lose. So the margin of error is so razor thin. And what did we see on that final drive? First, we see him rolling out to the left, trying to throw while running left like this. And who does he throw a 50-50 ball to? His running back 25 yards downfield. That could have easily been an interception. That's a horrible decision. Then 2nd and 10. He's rolling to his right. He's trying to buy time. He didn't commit to running it, but he didn't commit to passing it. Tries to buy time. He's throwing it all the way from the right side of the field across field to a guy in the back of the end zone on a 50-50 ball. And you know why that's stupid? You're down 3 points. You throw an interception, the game is over. You don't throw a 50-50 ball that could be intercepted in that moment. You throw it away. You saved it down. He literally made that mistake early in the game by already throwing an interception. And then on 3rd down, the worst he's done all day. Because the 3rd down and 10 is the worst for many reasons. One, he had a clean pocket. He has a Pro Bowl left tackle in Deion Dawkins. So by bailing on that pocket, it means one of 2 things. One, he either didn't trust his Pro Bowl left tackle, which that would be very concerning, or 2, he had hero ball in his mind the entire time, which is normally when he's anxious and he's feeling it a little bit, and he tried to force something. He had a receiver open if he just stayed patient for 1 more second, and the blocks sustained themselves. So he did have a clean pocket. And I know people said that safety went out of his way once they saw Josh running. He had the entire underneath. Even if that safety's covering him, he had 10 to 15 yards to put that ball. He could have put air on it to try to go deep. He could have put less air and lower trajectory to try to get it closer to maybe before the goal line and have some yards after the catch. He could have made a plethora of different throws. But Josh showed in that moment that he was feeling it in the inside, and he didn't do the smart play. He did what Wyoming Josh would do in that situation. And that's concerning because while everybody's going to make mistakes and no one's going to be perfect, the Bills need him to be perfect in those moments. And that's why Tom Brady won Super Bowls, because he led teams on those last-second drives. Mahomes against the Bills, 13 seconds in the playoffs, gets the touchdown. Then the Bills never see the ball back. But if you're feeling that anxiety, you're feeling that urge to hero ball, you're not going to play within the offense. And that's how you make a mistake. That's how you turn the ball over. And I'll be honest, too, the first interception of the game was atrocious. Atrocious. Like, watching it from the stadium, Shakir was double covered. Allen never steps into it. And he took 3 points off the board, and they lost the game. Now, at the end of the day, Allen's stats, they look fine. 2 touchdowns, over 250 yards passing, over 50 yards rushing. Like, Josh Allen at his worst is better than 95% of the quarterbacks in the league. But we don't judge Josh Allen based on the other 95% of the quarterbacks in the league. We judge Josh Allen based on Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. And if any of those quarterbacks did what Josh Allen did late in that game, they would be held accountable. People would be calling them out for it, and they would be taking the brunt of the blame. And in Buffalo, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because we feel sensitive to criticizing our quarterback, we do not go hard on him when that single-handedly can be the difference between winning a Super Bowl or losing one. And the last thing I will say is this regarding Allen. I do think one thing that is potentially hurting the Bills offense right now that will improve as the season goes on, and I think McDermott has shown this is something that they change as the season goes on. He is not running nearly enough in these games. They're trying to avoid him getting hit. They're handing the ball off to Cook in goal line situations. It is clear that they are trying to limit the amount of contact Josh Allen takes until later in the season in more important games when it really does matter. Because if he's getting the brunt of hits now, who knows how physical he's going to be able to be later in the season. That's part of why I'm not as worried about the run game, AJ. You mentioned, what are you going to do when James Cook is getting bottled up? In the playoffs, the answer will be run options with Josh Allen, QB power, Josh Allen. They just don't want to waste that in October 5th against the New England Patriots. That's how they're going to play football when it's 25 degrees and he's forcing his will on defensive tackles that don't want to take him down. Like, they're going to change what they do. And then I do want to toss it to you, Jake. I know I went on forever. We do need to talk about this receiver situation. Like,
okay,
we do have to talk about it because they play a big role too. Because I think a lot of what Josh Allen is doing is because he doesn't have enough faith in them, but he needs to still believe in them, or else it's not going to make a difference. Like, you could have a bad receiving core. You still have to believe in them. Like, you still have to trust them. And Josh loses his trust in them, that's just going to make everything even worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't watched back the tape yet from this game. I want to see, though, like I talked about with you, Carson, right at the start of this. What easy passes did he pass up? Even on some completions, even on some of the incompletions, on any of these plays, like, it wasn't happening the first 3 weeks of just taking everything that was given to him. And why did that change? Where did that change? Is it because he wants to be more explosive? Are they taking something away in the middle of the field or on those early downs of the easy buttons that he had? It is a big thing about the run game. And I'm glad you guys mentioned that the run game struggled, and the fact that this is probably one of the best run defenses they'll play all year, right? Like, the New England we talked about it last week. It's going to be strength on strength, run offense on run defense. What's going to happen out of this game? And it was the Patriots winning the battle more often than not at the line of scrimmage, and being able to kind of snuff these plays out. Allen, even on the design run they gave him on the read, he should have handed that off. I think that was a hero ball moment. He should have handed that off to Ty Johnson. Ty
Johnson scored.
He's walking in the end zone. I mean, easily. But the thing that you want to talk about, and I want to ask AJ to jump on this and then go around here, because the thing that you mentioned that is the biggest thing that I talked about after the game. I was on the phone with my dad for a while and have just thought about this game more often than not. And but you brought it up a little bit there as well. Is the fact that the offense right now has to play perfect football. They can't be an explosive offense that has variance. They have to be an efficiency monster. They have to be, as Carson was talking about, all their EPA stats and everything. That's the way they have to function, because they don't trust the defense, because they know the offense has to be a ball control offense. They have to go on 15 play, 7-minute drives, because they know if they give the ball back to the defense, or they give the ball to the other team on a short drive, that team's just going to go right down and be able to do the same thing, control the ball, keep the ball away from the defense, everything else. So AJ, I want to hear your thoughts on that theory, just about is the offensive scheme at this moment, because they feel like they have to hide the defense, that they have to protect the defense, and if so, what are they protecting the defense from? Are they protecting them from the personnel? Is it the personnel on the field that we know there's some injuries and suspensions still going on, or is it something we have not talked? We meant to talk about it last week, but we could talk about it tonight too. Is it Bobby Babich? Is it the scheme? Is it the way that they're game planning for these teams? Because when we talk about the quarterback having to be perfect, the offense having to be that efficient, everything else, it's like, okay, why do they have to do that? It is part of the receiving personnel, and I do want to get into the receivers a little bit at the end here. But I want to hear you, AJ, on the defense, and just what is it, personnel?
Before we go to AJ, I gotta cut out a little bit early, so
yes,
I'll
sir.
just give my quick prediction. Bills 24, Falcons 20. Go Bills. See you
All
next
right.
week.
Thank you, Parthy.
Yeah. So I think, Mike talked about mentally, Josh Allen. We've seen it a lot. The sugar high Josh, and I think that as much as we say that, Stephon Diggs had a career year in Buffalo, right? Or career years in Buffalo. His best seasons came in Buffalo. He's still a great receiver, but his best seasons came in Buffalo. Cole Beasley's best seasons came in Buffalo. John Brown's best seasons came in Buffalo. He had he had one good year before that, but some of his best years came in Buffalo. I think that mentally, if you're a quarterback, right, and a quarterback that's been like Josh, and he's on his third offensive coordinator, he played a totally different style of football with the other two, with Dorsey and Dable. When you're expected to play perfect and you feel like you cannot trust your defense in many situations, even against like a Spencer Rattler, and you feel like you have to play that perfect football, even though the Bills defense is only allowing 22. They're 18th in the league in points allowed, but it's around 22, 23, so a little below average. I think mentally that does play a toll too, because Josh mentally has to know that he needs to play so good, and if he knows that the margins are so slim, I think that in itself puts so much pressure on a quarterback, where I think Mahomes, he can play a little bit more loose, right? Because he trusts that the defense. Now, last night was a total anomaly. You never see, when the Chiefs went up with the minute 50 left, I thought that game was over. I thought there's no way Trevor Lawrence was going down the field, and they probably shouldn't have. He had a couple of boneheaded plays during that final drive, but they still, found a way. He made a great throw to Brian Thomas Jr. So I think that is a, discussion that has to be had. And again, do we know what do we know this works? We made the AFC Championship last year. It's obviously producing at a high clip, right? We're averaging 30 points plus a game. They've been a really good offense. They finally didn't score 30 for the first time, but it hasn't proven to work when it's mattered most. They still fell short last year against the same team with a different philosophy. So at the end of the day, they still fell short. So I think the Bills are playing the way they are because I think they do believe in it, and I think I believe in it. I still do believe in it, and I think it is, a better version of the Bills' offense, and I think it's helped Josh Allen. But when your defense is and I think it is personnel, and I think we could talk about Babich too. But the Bills are still, the second in the league in pressure rate in the NFL. So they are pressuring the quarterback. They are making them uncomfortable. Now they can't get away with the sacks. They can't finish plays. Drake May was pressured quite a few times, where that probably helped that pressure rate number, that he still was able to make a crazy play. So I think the Bills, although they're getting pressure, they're still allowing even explosive plays sometimes, either with the quarterback's legs or through the air. But I think the Bills' defense is a much bigger concern than the offense. And I think that can affect the quarterback when they know that the margins are that slim that they have to play such perfect football. If I make one mistake or I miss one play because the defense is so imperfect, that the whole week and the whole discussion around the game is going to be, oh my God, Josh Allen missed that one play, or Josh Allen, didn't do this right, or didn't take the safe throw to James Cook for 3 yards and extend that drive instead of throwing a bad pick. I think that is important. And it is, something I actually really haven't thought about until Jake framed the question like that. But I think it is something that the Bills' defense is a liability, and I think the offense knows that. And we'll see if they can get better. And, again, I think the defense is still the bigger issue, of course. But I think that Josh Allen needs to play near perfect football, and I think that's a very hard task, even for a player of his caliber.
And so that is, hey, listen, you couldn't go 20 seconds in a commercial last week without Josh Allen popping up on there. When it comes to pistachios, no free ads. We won't go all into it, but I mean, the bro was all over the place. But we can have a deeper conversation when it comes down to like a worse defensive performance, a game where we can really blame the defense, because this wasn't their worst performance that they've had this year. Right. I just think we have to think about it big picture when it comes to what this offense is trying to do right now and why they're playing the way that they are. And how do you end up that way? And I hope that I keep saying, I just want to see Ed Oliver back. How like Ed Oliver he posted on Instagram, looks like he's coming back this week. Max Hairston obviously was going to be a big plan to see him, because Trey White was just, the Patriots game plan in the second half was we're going to throw the ball towards Trey White and hope for the best. And it worked a lot in spades, and Stephon Diggs was on him a lot. And it helped the Patriots kind of get loose a little bit more than they needed to. But I just wonder how much that goes into their thought process of what they've tried to set this offense up for. But you want to talk about the receivers too. And we had a long discussion, the four of us, the other day about the receivers, and we've had it multiple times this year. And I think it's fair from everybody's side. I think that if it's to say, like Bundt, you said, like what else can they do? They kind of their bread is in this basket at this point. Like you kind of just have to roll with it, hope for the improvement from Coleman, maybe get Kincaid, maybe involve him even more. Hope that Palmer will build chemistry throughout the year, everything else. But I go back, and I hate to bring this up. I've been so cognizant to not bring this up for years now. But when you look at where does Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott come from? They come from the Carolina Panthers. When those teams were getting really good, when they were putting up a lot of wins and making one Super Bowl and making their runs, they had an elite athletic quarterback who could play Superman, play hero ball when they needed to. They added almost all their resources to a defensive line and the defensive side of the ball, and hoped that their secondary and getting pressure with four would do enough. And they had a mid-tier wide receiver room that when it came down to it in pressure moments, Cam Newton would press too much and guys wouldn't be getting open. And it just feels like, I don't want to get there. We keep winning all these games and things are going to be good. The Bills can win 13 games again this year, and we'll be in as good a position as anybody else to win the playoffs. And I don't want to sound like an alarmist or anything else, but the definition of insanity is not doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the same results. Now we have like 10 years of team building of Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane involved in it, where you see the same, at least similar things happen in these end of game situations. How the defense, I love a pressure rate stat. They've had great pressure rate the last couple years and not been able to get home too. So it's like, what are we trying to do here? You know, like,
yes, I know exactly what you're saying.
Well,
and so how?
Wait, real quick one. This is gonna be quick. Carson, I always make fun of his offensive regression point because there is hot take because like they were scoring points like well and looking good. And this is quick. Last night or Sunday night was the exact reason why Carson before the year said the Bills offense would regress. That's all I'm gonna say.
Bingo.
Fine, go ahead.
So here's the tough part. And Jake, this is why they don't change. They win games at the second highest rate in the NFL over an extended period of time. Like the problem, and this is why I always get back to it. The only team that's keeping them from winning a Super Bowl is Kansas City. So the thought process by Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott is, we don't have to deal with Kansas City. We would have won 1, 2, 3 Super Bowls during this period of time. And that is why they don't make changes. They make changes to the team to try to defeat Kansas City. The problem is Kansas City also makes changes to their roster that helps end Buffalo. Like in the beginning, when the Bills got killed by Kansas City in the first AFC Championship, it was because the Bills couldn't score with Kansas City. But then now the Bills can score with them, but they can't get the points when it matters the most. And it's tough because you brought up the Carolina Panthers team. Let's be real. The Panthers didn't fall apart because their makeup was bad. It was because their coaching staff, Ron Rivera, used Cam Newton as a running back, and it destroyed his body physically to the point where he couldn't get it done anymore. And he wasn't an accurate enough passer to get by when his legs were gone. But during that stretch, the Panthers were one of the elite offenses in the NFL, and there is a lot of similarities. You know what the Panthers did? And this is the crazy part. Cam Newton had his MVP season when he had a guy out, that one of his healthy receivers out. Josh Allen, MVP season without Diggs. Cam Newton, one of the most successful seasons, like as far as team success, without a star receiver. Josh Allen, one of the most successful seasons without a star receiver. And what did the Panthers have in common? Both had strong, physical, running quarterbacks. They had rocket arms. They had solid running backs behind them, good offensive lines, elite tight end, Greg Olsen. I'm not going to say Dalton Kincaid's elite, but he has the ability to. And then they had good complementary receivers. Nothing great. Good guys. You are right. In situations, people would be like, they can't get anybody open. But at the end of the season, you look at the stats and you're like, the Panthers put up a lot of damn points, and Cam Newton gets a lot of touchdowns, and they win a lot of games. See, this is like what's frustrating. Like, as a Bills fan, you watch the Sunday night against the Patriots, and you're like, God, the offense really sucked. And then at the end of the day, you realize they scored 20 points, which is only 2 points less than the Chiefs' average last year. Like, there's teams across the league where that would have been a good day for them. Like the Bills put up 360 plus yards, and we're like, God, this is so horrible. That's like 30 more yards than an NFL team averages. Yep. So like their worst day was still better than an average day. And the only reason why they lost the game was because they turned over three times. Think about it. The Coleman fumble gives the Patriots 3. The Josh Allen interception takes away 3. That's 6 points. And then you have a fumble near midfield where you're probably getting at least a field goal, maybe a touchdown. The Bills basically had 13 points, minimum 9 points impacted just based on their turnovers. So we are all talking about the offense and how bad they are. In reality, like, they should have still won the game if they just didn't turn the ball over. So I struggle with that because I really actually do think the Bills have the proper philosophy in place. It's just that there's a Chiefs team that has been better. And
I think the Panthers also had more talent. The linebackers, I looked it up. They had Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly.
This is what the struggle.
And Josh Norman.
And James Bradbury.
And here's the thing. I don't think in past years the Bills offense would need to play perfect. Now in the playoffs, the defense has had horrible performances when it matters.
Horrendous.
But let's be real. Like the Bills had a 5-year period where their defense was like really good. Like 2018, 2019, like that defense. Like when Josh Allen's in his second year in the NFL, that defense is why the Bills go to the playoffs, not Josh Allen. Like 2021, 2022, the defense was still very, very good. Like there was a year they were like the number 1 DVOA defense, and they were allowing like 17 points a game, top 5 in pressure rate, top 3 in takeaways. Like it hasn't always been that. But what happens in the NFL, you go through cycles where guys get older and you have to cycle them out and you have to replace them. Where the Bills are hurting right now is we're learning that Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, they weren't just like good players that became great because of coaching. They were exceptional players that carried the rest of the defense because they were great communicators. They knew how to disguise things, and it was a pass-happy offense, but the Bills were a shutdown secondary. Now that the league is going a little bit more running and the Bills have this smaller defense, it hurts them in a lot of ways. Because think about it. Where are the Bills most susceptible right now? They stink at linebacker and they stink at safety. So if their linebackers aren't going to cover, if their linebacker, but here's the real big problem with the Bills right now. So you stink at linebacker, but you have undersized linebackers. So not only are you struggling in run defense, which would be expected with smaller linebackers, you're not covering anybody either. So you're struggling double in that area. But then that's where you need safeties come in. If the Bills struggled at linebacker before, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer could make up for it because Jordan Poyer can make a play at the line of scrimmage. Micah Hyde could be in the right spot saving a corner. Now you have two of the worst safeties in the NFL. So it's a double down. You're struggling in the middle of the field in the close to the line of scrimmage. Then you're struggling in the middle of the field in the intermediate. And you have Trey White, who's older, who needs safety help, but he can't depend on his safety help because the safeties are never in the right area to help him. And then Christian Benford, who is by all means probably one of the better corners in the league, has gotten off to a slow start to this year. Taron Johnson's getting older. He's undersized for the position he's playing, so his body probably isn't dealing with everything he needs to. So you banked on this defensive line taking a step up. You thought giving Bosa and then Rousseau and then Ed Oliver's missing time. Daquan's getting older. And the tough part is this. Last year was a reset year. I thought this year would be a step back forward for the defense. What we're finding out right now is that for all these years, we said the coaching staff was why the secondary was so good. We're finding out now, like, you need good players too. And until Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp figure out how to play at least average football, and these linebackers figure out how to not be amongst the worst in the league, this defense is going to put up average results. And I don't think it's all said and done for them because I do think Michael Hoyt will make a difference because the Bills do have interesting scheme-related things from Babbage. Like, there are certain things that they're trying, but Javon Solomon can't do the same things Michael Hoyt can do. So not having Hoyt, you're not seeing that level. Ogunjobi, let's be real. Ogunjobi is not going to suddenly make the Bills' defensive line great, but can he be any worse than TJ Sanders has been? Like, TJ Sanders has been horrendous. So you're playing Deion Walker right now, a fourth-round pick, as your starting D tackle because you have no depth. And some of this is an indictment on Brandon Beane because he had a second-round pick, third-round picks, guys that you want to contribute, not like a starters right away, but contribute, and he's getting no contributions from them. And then your first-round pick, unfortunately, got an injury. So you have an entire first 2 days of draft picks that are essentially giving you nothing when you've invested all of your resources in the defense this year. And so, like, that's the tough part. People are like, well, why isn't it paying off? Like, well, Beane made some mistakes and he had some misfortune. But here's the reason why you shouldn't just give up on it. Hoyt does have the ability to make a difference, not just when he's on the field, but he can give Rousseau or give.
And they're paying him like it too.
Yeah, he can give them a breather, keep them fresh. Or you can do mixed looks with all three on the field. Like, let's be real. Like, part of what they said about Hoyt was if you have Hoyt, you can move Rousseau inside. We haven't seen that look. If you have a look where it's Rousseau, Hoyt, and Bosa on the field at the same time, that is three defensive ends that could get to the quarterback. Maybe that's how they're going to get the pressure. Maybe that's how they go from pressure rate to getting the sack. Maybe that extra pressure, that extra getting to the quarterback makes a difference with making quarterbacks make slightly off throws, which lead to interceptions. Like, the Bills defense is notorious for creating takeaways, but they haven't been able to create takeaways this year because they're not getting close enough to the quarterback. So there's a lot of things that they need to work on. But when Ed Oliver is back, when Michael Hoyt is back, when Ogunjobi is playing, I don't know if we're ever going to have a healthy linebacker, but like, there is some things that they can work on to improve. So I'm not going to stay here say today that the defense is going to be as bad 10 weeks from now as it is now. And the last thing I'll say defensive wise too, and AJ, we talked about this the other day.
Taron Johnson.
What was that?
Taron Johnson missed, and they had the highest missed tackle rate in football. But I thought
but that's been something they've always struggled with.
I thought you were going to talk about Taron Johnson though. My bad.
The Bills have always struggled with the tackle rate. It's part of that is just the way they run their defense. But I told you this the other day, AJ, and I think it holds true to a certain degree. The Bills defense, the nickel defense, is analytically, it was ahead of its time. They saw the NFL going to being a passing league, and they brought that out when not many teams were doing that. That's part of why they had a lot of success. They had answers before teams adjusted to what they're doing. Now everybody in the NFL does what the Bills do. So you practice against it. You go up against it. You're used to facing it. This is what I'd say. The Bills defense with their offense makes sense. You want to get high pass pressure rate, and you want your secondary to try to create takeaways, because when you have an offense that scores as much as the Bills, that's how you blow teams out. And that's what the Bills have done for the majority of the last 5 years. I would recommend the Bills making some changes to their defense. My reasoning being, I think against 90% of the NFL, that's a fine strategy. The problem is the best of the best, they know how to dissect it still. So you have this question, do we run our defense with low-level variance where, say we're going to allow 20 points a game, 325 yards, and we're going to finish top 10 in takeaways? Do we do that knowing that come playoff time, the Chiefs are going to put 30 on us, 400 yards, and if we don't get a takeaway or two, we're going to need our offense to be perfect? Or do you do a higher variance defense that has up and down results, where maybe the Bills go 10-7 in a regular season because their defense allows 30 plus 5 weeks, but in the playoffs, they have the ability to surprise the Chiefs and hold them to 14. I think that is what people don't realize. Like, you're either getting A or B. The Bills' defense is consistent because of its scheme, the coaching, and the philosophy. But that's also why it falls short in the playoffs. The Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs always showed up, their defense. That's how they went to the Super Bowl. That's how they made a run to the AFC Championship. But the Bengals defense in the regular season was never a top 10 defense those years. Even the Chiefs, when they were going to the Super Bowl early with Mahomes, they were not even a top 15 defense. There was years they were 17-18. But then come playoff time, they get a takeaway in a big moment. They get a stop in a big moment. Why? Higher variance, but that means you get the really good with the really bad. And I think what we have to accept as Bills fans, if we do move on from McDermott, or if we really want to see change and have the defense step up, is, are you okay with the Bills defense potentially being a shutdown defense in the postseason if it means you might risk not making the playoffs because they're going to be horrendous in the regular season? I'm not saying it's one or the other, but
yeah, I see what you mean.
Is consistent for a reason.
Yeah. It's a lot of great points. We'll talk a lot and like you said, and we've talked about it'll be a more full story once Ed Oliver's back, once we see Max Hairston get worked in, once we see Hoyt and Ogunjobi get back. But it's something to monitor because it seems like this is similar things, and they're going to need to trust that defense. They're going to need to get that stop. They're going to need to get the sacks going if they want to reach that ultimate goal. So it's just an interesting topic to see with the team build and where they're at this point. But we got to get out of here. We got to get to our predictions. I'll start with Carson. Carson, Monday night, Atlanta. I just realized it was 7:15 Eastern. So I hope you guys know that. I realized that's going to be an early start for me, 6:15 Central. So early kickoff. Usually weird games in Atlanta. High-powered offense down there. They're a different team at home. They are the road. What are you expecting, Carson? Let's go around the horn.
Atlanta's a weird team because they got so much talent on paper. They're still raw when it comes to the quarterback position. I think Penix has shown some flashes, but the consistency hasn't been there. Got Drake London, who's an absolute beast, and then Bijan can catch out of the backfield. He can run for it. He's an absolute weapon and a luxury to have on offense. But that offensive line's solid as well. They're 7th in the league, lowest sack percentage. They're about middle of the pack everywhere else. But Penix, he's a turnover machine. You got to force him into an interception this week. It's something that turnovers, Bills in years past have been a lot better at. This year, the Bills only have 5 turnovers through 5 games. They've been top 5 in the last 5 years. So Bijan's a little bit of a nightmare. I think he scares me. Like I said earlier, I think it's a big game because you enter the bye week. If you lose your 2 entering the bye week, I think there's a little bit of concern, and the fan base is going to be a little up and riled up for that. But hey, defense for the Falcons, they don't play around. First in yards per game, first in passing yards per game on defense, middle of the pack against the run. So it could be a really tough week to throw the football yet again for the Bills. I know fans are going to have definite opinions about that, and I think reasonably so. So we'll have to look out for that. But to me, I think the Bills, I think they do rebound here in this situation. 7-15 times so weird. I hate those times to watch a game, but give me the Bills in this one, 28-24 on Monday Night Football.
Hey.
Yeah, I think nice prediction, Carson. I think that the Bills, go into Atlanta. It's a longer week, and my dad with the prediction 23-17 Falcons. That's my dad. He'll probably bet that too. I think that this Bills team needs to rebound quick. I think they need to get this win. I think they need to find it. I think this is a very important game just from the aspect of you just had a stinker at home against a divisional opponent. They have the Saints this week. If you lose this game, you could enter the bye week in second place in the division, which would look a lot different than what we thought, it would look, going into this Patriots game where we thought they were going to coast to a 7-0 record before playing Kansas City at home. So I think it's an important game. Like Carson said, he touched on it. This Falcons offense has struggled. They have negative 0.025 EPA per pass, while their rushing attack produces negative 0.030 EPA per rush. So they struggle both running and passing, but their defense, like Carson said, much better. They have a negative 0.138 EPA per pass allowed. And again, they have some playmakers there. Xavier Watts, the rookie, who I wish the Bills would have drafted, but they didn't, is a great player, a ball hawk. And they also have Jesse Bates out there and AJ Terrell. So I think the Bills receiver talk, regardless if there's going to be a win or not, is going to be full steam ahead entering into the bye week, going up against a really, really good secondary that's really shut down. Even Jefferson and Addison looked. And Addison wasn't in yet, but Jefferson looks, the Vikings, they did not really have much success in the air either against this team. So I think the Bills are going to have to run the ball. The rushing defense is much worse. 0.048 EPA per rush allowed. So I think that the Bills are going to have to get home on Penix. He's not as much of a scrambler, right? He can't move as well. I want to see them finish some sacks, like Carson said, create some turnovers. I got the Bills in this one. I think it's going to be a rebound. I got them 27-20. I think they get it done on the road and go into the bye week 5-1.
So I always use Vegas for obviously my predictions, and I don't even care about the matchups. Falcons are all right. What I'll say is interesting is this line started at Bills 4.5, which if you would have said before the season that the Bills are only 4.5 point favorites against the Falcons, you would say that's probably a tiny line overall. You would have thought maybe like 6-7. Oh my God, I didn't even mean to say that. But it's gone down to 3.5. And why I find that interesting is that means people are putting money on Atlanta. And I think that's a result of the Bills not looking good in a primetime spotlight game. And
against New Orleans and Miami too.
And you combine the fact, you can talk about New Orleans, but I don't know if bettors are looking at an 11-point win or whatever it is as a bad performance.
Sure.
But what my thought process is, Atlanta's coming off a good win over Washington. Bills are coming off a bad loss against New England. It's home. It's in Atlanta. People are thinking, okay, Atlanta's going to show up at home. I'm thinking the opposite. Like if the money was on the Bills in this and the line went from like 4.5 to 5.5, I'd be a little concerned. I'd think like, okay, there's something odd. I think the Bills are going to bounce back, and I have them not just putting up points. I have them winning 35-21. Like this to me, like I don't respect the Falcons offense. I know they have a lot of like talented players, but they really do struggle and a lot of basic things. Like we talk about all these guys. Bijan's great. Like they have guys with talent, but like, do any of you actually think the Falcons are going to make the playoffs in the NFC? Like most of you are probably saying no. So yes, the Bills have the annual October 2-game losing streak. And yeah, like that can obviously happen. And maybe the Bills go on the road and they have another clunker. But I think this is one of those where like people are a little bit low on them after this game and how they looked against New Orleans and Miami. And the Bills are like, fuck it. We're about to score 35 on you. We're going to put up 450 yards. And I don't know. Maybe it's a passing game. Maybe it's a running game. But if the Bills offense brings it, I don't know how Atlanta can keep up with them. So if the Bills defense struggles against Atlanta, I'll be pretty frustrated.
Well said, all of you. I think this is going to be a show for the running backs. I'm with you, Carson. I'm terrified of Bijan Robinson in this game and what he can do out of the backfield in the passing game and in the run game. I don't think I'm at least from what I've seen. We talked about earlier, from what we've seen from Josh Allen, is he going to turn back into the efficiency monster, Tom Brady-esque quarterback, where taking his checkdowns all game and taking his lunch, or is he going to have another turnover in this game? I'm going to bet he's going to have another turnover in this game that leads to a Falcons score in plus position. I think the Bills win. I think they get back to 30 points. I think it's close, though. That line's at 3.5. I think it's a Bills 34-30 win on Monday night that we don't really feel great about. What you got there?
It's 4.5 on FanDuel. So you would have the Falcons.
Oh, all right. Well, then there we go. Right. It's going to be right there. It's going to be right on that line.
If you do it based on the line and the over-under, right now on ESPN bet, it's 3.5, and the over-under is basically 50.5. You'd be looking at like a 27-23 type game. So
I'm just adding a touchdown each side there, basically for that. So that's where I'm at. I could see it. I'm with you guys, or with you about the faith in the efficiency of the Falcons offense. I don't think it's the greatest unit. They still have growing pains, and Penix has spurts, but he has a lot of issues too. But I just want to see, with a couple weeks of tape, they've improved that defensive line. I feel like Allen is going to make another mistake. He's going to press at some point and put them in a position where a 2-score game turns back into a 1-score game, but the Bills will win and go into the break 5-1.
Patriots win, Bills lost. They're in second place.
That would be where the Pats have. Who do they got?
New Orleans.
Oh, at New Orleans. Yeah.
No,
great.
don't. Yeah. If you want to do yourself a favor, don't look at the New England schedule. They have
it's pretty. Yeah.
Schedule in the league. I don't even know if I think like half the teams are against shit. So.
Their next 3 games are New Orleans, Tennessee, and Cleveland.
I'll just say
that's scary, man. That's a little scary.
That's rough.
You look at everything. Vegas is still super confident in the Bills. Poly market is super high in the Bills. This is classic. Like we went into the season like, well, they're not going to start 7-0. That Atlanta game could be tough on Monday Night Football, and then like they lose to the Patriots. This is like we might be looking back at this New England game and say it was the perfect wake-up call for the team. They took it from another division opponent, and it woke them up to be like, guys, we can't fucking do this again. And you know what? I'll say this. You know what the biggest reason for my optimism in this game is because I think in that film room, Josh Allen's going to look at the film of what he did against the Patriots, and he's going to be like, I'm fucking embarrassed with myself. While no one in Buffalo will say it, Josh Allen will break down that game, and he'll say that was a D+ performance by me. I got to be better. And I trust the Bills MVP quarterback to rebound from that. Maybe not against the Saints because it didn't really hurt him at all. But you lose a game like that inside that locker room, like they're going to fix it. And if they lose against Atlanta, okay, just end the season. Like
it'll be a long bye week.
Baltimore, Houston back-to-back last year. We thought they'd bounce back against
Houston. Those are different opponents. Houston won the AFC South. Baltimore won the AFC North. That's different than losing to the Patriots, who may or may not be in playoff contention at the end of the year, and Atlanta, who may or may not be in playoff contention. Like you're talking about 2 teams that both won playoff games last year versus 2 teams that are not expected to win playoff games and would be happy and fortunate just to get into the postseason. So, yeah, the Bills could lose them. But if the Bills lost these 2 games in a row, it'd be one of the worst stretches of the last 5 years that they've had.
Well, we all picked them, so we'll be except Chris. Chris is, we got at least we got
my dad's got the Falcons and the under. Falcons money
and the under. Let it rip, man. All right, but we paid the bills. Shout out to our sponsor, Picasso's Pizza. Thank you, Parthy, for joining on earlier. Thank you, Carson, AJ, and Bundt. This is Jake Micah. We'll be back next week. Go Bills.